Do you remember that person in your life who you thought was the perfect person for you, but they ended up breaking your heart? When you were around them, you felt nerves, they were exciting, and there was a spark. And after a few painful lessons, you later realized that those nerves were actually a big hell no from your nervous system. And that person was only exciting because they were emotionally unavailable and breadcrumbing you along the way. As it turned out, what we thought we were compatible with was a giant walking red flag. But it's the lesson that we needed to have. Because here's the thing. The spark is actually a terrible measure of compatibility. It's purely a survival mechanism designed to help us make babies with people we think are hot. But it can also be triggered from a myriad of issues under the hood, like our nervous system being attracted to what's familiar, not what's healthy. But the bigger issue here, when we are hyper-focused on the spark, we often overlook the green flags. I make viral content on relationships and energy, and the number one question I get is, what should I look for in a partner? See, Hollywood has trained us to see compatibility as fireworks, where it's love at first sight, and there's this intense emotional and physical reaction which leaves us a blabbering mess. And while you certainly can have the spark with someone you're compatible with, it definitely should not be used as the only measure of success. Because most of the time, the green flags, the things that actually signal that you can hang out with this person for the rest of your life, they fly under the radar. They're things like peace, calm, and harmony, i.e. they're boring. So I founded Becoming to help people create happiness from the inside out. And it's about time I did an episode on the unsung heroes of relationships. Green flags. They're less sexy and they're less talked about than their fiery cousins, but they are so important. So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 green flags to look out for in your relationship, situationship, friendship, all the ships. And the number one thing is if they're emotionally available. So we've been taught to play it cool or seem disinterested, and I'm sure you probably grew up with the phrase, treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen. And there's a really interesting backstory to why that actually works. Treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen taps into childhood attachment, where they've internalized the idea that love is inconsistent. And then they get attracted to people who activate that feeling of inconsistency. But anyway, it's obviously not healthy. It builds insecurity. But do you know what is hot? Someone who's not playing games. Someone who has the courage to open their heart for connection and put their heart on the line. Naturally, that energy invites us to do the same, and the relationship can move on from there. When I first met Zoe, I was very jaded with the dating market because everyone was playing games. There seemed to be such a fear of putting your heart on the line and showing interest with the person you're on a date with, which sounds ridiculous. Or maybe they just didn't like me. That also adds up. So back to my date with Zoe, she had such an energy of openness, which invited me to do the same. And because there are no games being played, our relationship just allowed to move forward with momentum. Not to say we haven't had our fair share of arguments, which brings us to number 2. They stay open during conflict. Have you ever been in a fight where they shut down on you? The term for this is stonewalling, when they block any constructive dialogue by saying, fine, that's okay, and refusing to cooperate. I don't know about you, but wow, this grinds my gears. And I think for me, it goes back to when I was a pimply-faced adolescent and struggled to control my temper. And my mum didn't know how to handle that either. So she would shut down. I had no way to process my emotions. So this is quite triggering for me. But here's the thing about conflict in a relationship. It's inevitable. And I don't care how great your relationship is, you're always going to fight eventually. It's just a natural byproduct of spending so much time with someone. But the good news is, that's not a bad thing. Healthy conflict is essential for any thriving relationship. Without conflict, our emotions and our resentments just get pushed down into this reservoir until it boils up and we unload on some poor bastard in the traffic. For conflict to be healthy, it requires both partners to stay open, soften, and communicate their feelings, even when it's really difficult, and I've certainly been there. So while some people are looking for big boobs and biceps, I encourage you to look for healthy conflict resolution and whether you can go toe-to-toe with your person respectfully and constructively. Which brings me to green flag number 3, you feel a sense of calm around them. Back to my first date with Zoe, you're going to feel like you were there by the end of this. We laugh when we think back to it, but we shared some intimate shit on that first date. Family struggles, insecurities, things you wouldn't usually cover on a casual night on your first date with tacos. The reason we were so openly sharing is because we felt safe to be vulnerable. When you feel calm around someone, it's often because they have a balanced and grounded nervous system. It's an energy thing that we notice before they say a single word. Calm exudes safety, and that's a great thing to look out for in a partner. Calm also signals emotional regulation, which makes them better equipped to handle any curveballs that life will invariably throw our way. Which brings me to the final green flag. They are emotionally consistent. I think the most anxious part of dating is when you don't know where you stand with the other person. It's in those early days where you scrutinize over a text message to work out if Dave from Tinder, who also likes fish, likes you more than his fish. When we don't know where we stand with someone, it's incredibly stressful. Remember, we're wired for survival, so when someone is hot or cold, our nervous system registers it as instability, which isn't exactly congruent for starting a family. And again, if you're constantly standing on eggshells around someone, it can mirror a childhood pattern. If emotional unavailability was a part of your early relationships, you may be sensitive to this dynamic. So when you're having to second guess what mood your partner's in, this can open that wound right up. Our attachment system loves clarity and predictability, which makes consistency such a beautiful green flag. There's a reason compatibility feels easy. It's because you're not overthinking. You're not second guessing, and your nervous system isn't in survival mode about whether Dave with the fish likes you more than his fish. Green flags are boring because they're not triggering you. They shouldn't trigger an emotional reaction in one way or the other. They should just feel peaceful and harmonious. At the end of the day, I believe the goal in any partnership is to help us become the most authentic and expanded version of each other. So now when people ask me, what's the number one thing to look for in a partner? I say someone that's going to bring peace and harmony into your life. And if you want to dive deeper into all of this, I've created a free 10-day energy detox, and the link is in the description. Until next time.